very much. Really happy to be here with all of you at this amazing event. It's been so exciting for me to get to know Matthias and really learn about everything that's going on over the next 2 days in this incredible community that he and his team have brought together. So, as Andrew mentioned, I'm here to talk to you guys about digital transformation, which may seem like a topic that's even bigger than procurement, if that's possible, since procurement touches everything in the business, as we all know. But this is something to which you guys are absolutely central, right? Organizations today cannot transform, none of them, without your leadership. And so that's what I want to talk about. How do we make the kind of difference? How do we get away from those numbers Andrew mentioned of so many organizations that are struggling to drive change and not achieving their goals? So, as was mentioned, I teach at Columbia Business School, right? I just got on a plane yesterday and flew to this beautiful city. And in New York there, I have a chance in person and also online to teach executives like you, right? I don't actually teach the young MBAs. I teach working leaders like you in businesses all over the world, 25,000 executives in the last 10 years, about the changes and the challenges that you're facing, and that gives me a chance to learn from so many different organizations that are all trying to keep up with this incredible pace of digital change. Now, my last book I wrote about 7 years ago. I'm a very slow writer. And that book was the first one on this topic, to sort of put digital transformation on the map. And I'm going to save you a lot of time and about $20 or 20 euros and give you the whole book in one slide, all right? This is the key message of that book. Digital transformation is actually not about the technology, right? Of course, you're going to use technology in implementing whatever strategies you choose. Of course, we have to change because of the pace of technology around us. But the hard part of transforming organizations is actually not about the tech, right? It's about, today's theme, making the technology work for your customers and for your business. How do we make this actually work and deliver value and capture value in our own organizations, right? And I talked in that book about how do we rethink our business to define what's our growth opportunity, right? By thinking differently about customers, about competition, about data, about innovation, and about value, right? Now, this has become a topic that is of interest all around the world today, right? So we're still having trouble with a clicker. Sorry. So that book's out in over a dozen languages. Our latest was Romanian. I'm hoping to see what comes next. The point is, in every industry and in every geography, I see and I meet companies that are still trying to figure out this journey. How do we actually transform our existing businesses more effectively? And I have a chance to intersect with and talk with leaders in many different industries, because that's really what fascinates me, is to try to find what are the common problems and what are the common lessons between, technology companies that we all know, like Microsoft and Google, versus luxury goods businesses, industrial manufacturing, telcos, finance companies. And it turns out these very different companies are all struggling with the same things. And what I've seen across all of them in the last 7 years is that digital transformation is really hard. And as Andrew mentioned, we've got some data at this point to back it up. In fact, the most optimistic surveys that I've seen looking at companies globally show that 70% of digital transformations are failing. Others as many as 80%, right? So I wanted to understand why, and that's really been my focus of my research for the last few years, is to get at the why. Right? What is actually holding back these companies that want to make a difference? What are the root causes to the failure of digital transformations? And what I found in my own research is that there are 5 things that we tend to see in different businesses holding us back. The first is a lack of a shared vision that everyone in the organization understands of where we're going and why. The second is a lack of clear growth priorities. I'm just going to keep clicking till we get these on. The third is a lack of experimentation, right? Companies still trapped in the old habits of planning, and more planning. The fourth barrier is inflexibility in the governance of our organizations. And lastly, no investment in the long-term growth of the capabilities that we are going to need to become true digital businesses for the future, right? And you guys, as procurement leaders, are going to be an essential piece of solving all 5 of these puzzles, right? But the good news is you don't have to figure this all out on your own, because by now we actually have some real lessons we can learn from what I call the 30%, right? I'm an optimist. You tell me 70% are failing, I want to look at what are the lessons we can take away from this very interesting cohort of companies that are, many of them, legacy businesses, have been around for a long time, and yet they are driving real transformative change in the digital era. So that has become the focus of my work, and that was really what I set out to write about in my new book, which again is called The Digital Transformation Roadmap. You don't have to read it. You've got 25 minutes with me right now. I'm going to tell you the highlights, all right? It's really 5 things that I've found that all of these companies that are succeeding in driving real change, that all of them are doing, right? Each in their own fashion, finding their own path, but all of them are defining a shared vision, picking the problems that matter most, learning to validate new ventures through experimentation in the work, managing growth not in one sector, but across, at scale across the business, and lastly, really investing to grow the technology, the talent, and most importantly, the culture that they need for real change. All right? So let's take a little look at each of these, and I'll try to share what I've seen among these true best-in-class companies. So the first step on the roadmap is about vision, right? How do we define a shared vision? And this is critical, because I often hear from observers that transformation is hard because of people, right? And why is that? Because people don't like change. That is the common wisdom. People are bad at change, right? How many times have you heard that, right? People just are not good at change. I would observe that this is completely wrong. I am convinced, and I have seen, that humans have a tremendous capability for change. In fact, we all saw this in March of 2020. Not just that individuals, but even organizations are able to move incredibly quickly and to adapt and to respond to change when everyone understands how we must change and why we must change, right? That is what is different in a true crisis. That is what enabled every organization, including old, ancient, sleepy universities, right? Talk about legacy organizations. I've seen this from the inside, to turn on a dime, totally transform our entire model of education in a matter of about 72 hours, right? Your own businesses did the same thing. So change is easy in a crisis because we all understand where we're headed and why we have to make this work, right? Otherwise, this is your job, right? In the normal pace of transformation, it is the leader's job to distill, articulate, and communicate to everyone this shared vision, right? And what goes into that? This is a vision that everyone in the organization understands in common, and that lays out very simply, where is your world going, right? Not the world at large, not every industry, not other companies, but your business, right? Your customers, your partners. What's changing in your particular business context? Where is it going? Why do you have to change? What is the place that you are going to occupy in that fast emerging digital future, right? And why you? Out of all the other businesses out there, why do they need your business in particular to play this role, right? This is what everyone in the organization has to understand. And when you do that right, it has a tremendous impact, right? So one of the companies I've been tracking that's really going through tremendous digital disruption in recent years is Disney, right? And the reason why they are pulling ahead of their peers in this incredibly difficult shift from these legacy media business models to streaming and the new digital business models is because, from Bob Iger down, they've had a really clear vision of what this change has to be, where they're going, how they need to balance at the same time their legacy media business is profitable but rapidly declining. And then they've got a new digital business model, that's growing fast, but guess what? It's still losing money, right? It's getting closer and closer to break even. This is a really hard balancing act for any leaders to manage, and you can only pull it off if you consistently communicate to your investors and to all of your employees, what exactly are we doing and why? Why is this the path we have to stick forward? What is that future that we are shooting for? All right. The second step that all these companies get right is picking the problems that matter most to them, right? Really focusing everyone on understanding what are a few things that are really going to matter as we transform this business, and how do we focus on those and set aside many, many other distractions, right? And here is actually where technology itself can become a distraction, right? I've had this conversation with many, many leaders, right? ChatGPT is not your strategy, right? Metaverse is not a strategy. Web3 is not a strategy. Blockchain is not a strategy, right? These are all technologies that you may use, but we have to take to heart the mantra of the startups in the room, which is to fall in love with a problem and not the solution, right? What is the problem that you're trying to solve? That should be the starting point for all of your digital investments and your new ventures and your new innovations in procurement, right? And that may be a problem for your customer, right? A lot of startups, that's where you start from, but it can also be a problem for your business, right? What is one thing that truly matters to the success of your business that you each individually are focusing on right now, that you're going to find new digital solutions to really transform and drive impact, right? This is the kind of question we have to truly focus on, right? Many of you, of course, I know are connected to supply chain within your industries or in your organizations. And many of those, you guys have fulfillment centers, right? All of us who are dealing with physical products that have to be sent around from one place to another location. And for the businesses that I've advised, I know one of the key problems you constantly face there is called picking, right? There's two jobs in these warehouses. You pick and you pack. So picking is, you've got an order and you've got these various items that are all scattered across a gigantic warehouse, and somebody's got to get the right items together for a given order, right? And so how do you get that human being to quickly pick all these items that are in all these different places? Well, some of the solutions that are emerging now with AI and robotics, it's less about how do we move this person around faster. Instead, we're moving the shelves to the picker, right? Bringing the shelf to the workers. This is the kind of rethinking of the definition of your business that we need, and that comes clear to us when we are truly focused on problems to solve, right? And so I urge you to think about what are the problems that matter most to your customers, what are the problems that matter most to your business, and what are also the growth opportunities that your digital innovations truly need to be focused on, right? How can you create an incredible experience customers weren't expecting, or how can you drive an expansion and new growth for your own business? The third step of the roadmap is about experimentation. Now this starts to get really hard because this is really changing our mindset and our habits of thinking inside businesses. Because inside established organizations, our usual playbook for how do we deal with new change is through a whole lot of planning, right? Planning, planning, and more planning. And instead, we need to flip that script and look at every uncertainty and every opportunity facing our business through an approach of experimentation, right? What I call validating any new ventures or ideas that you may have. So take, for example, CNN, an established business looking at transformation in the digital era, changing customer expectations, and they thought about what's our place going to be? What's our new big bet going to be? How do we create an experience for the digitally connected consumer, right? How do we move beyond linear cable television delivery? And they use the old playbook. So that starts with a lot of benchmarking, and you hire a consultant and you get lots of third-party data. Then you do a lot of scenario planning and a lot of business case analysis of if we do this way or that way, and we do all these detailed projections of what the results are going to be and how many subscribers year 1 and year 2. And then they came up with this plan for a streaming service, right? And then what do? How do you decide? You send it up to the top, right? The most important people. The highest paid person's opinion will rule, right? And so in this case, this was Jeff Zucker and his boss, Jason Kilar, and they said, streaming's the future, we're gonna do it, people are gonna love us, we're gonna have 2 million viewers in the first year, second year, 2, we go global, we'll have 5 million, then 10 million. They had this whole chart of exponential growth they were convinced was gonna happen, right? And they spent $300 million to launch this thing on day 1, and it was a complete failure. They got about 1% of the television viewers to even try out the streaming service. Right? Whole thing was shut down in 30 days. This is what I see is one of the worst steps you can take as a leader. This kind of overconfident, incredibly costly mistake, right? This was a great idea worth pursuing. You didn't have to lose $300 million to find out that your current TV customers were not going to pay for a streaming news app. I could have found that out for you in 30 days and $30,000, right? Any good startup team could have figured that out, brought you the data. So instead, what we need is a totally different approach when we're looking at digital innovations, right? And it starts with a mindset. This is the one most under-leveraged attribute of leaders today. Humility. Humility, right? This is what true leaders show. So today we look at the New York Times as one of the greatest examples of a legacy business that's truly transformed from the digital era. But guess what? They had the right mindset. Dean Baquet, their executive editor, said, we have no idea what the future of journalism is, right? We try stuff. We take risks. We screw up. We don't know what's going to work. We learn through the process, right? And whether it is startups or whether it is teams inside large organizations, what I find is those who are actually accelerating change is they start from this point of view of humility, and then they focus on validating, testing, like a scientist, defining the hypotheses of any new business idea, right? Any change in your operations. That's what you guys need to be doing. And this starts with validating the problem that you think you are solving, right? And next you need to understand and you need to test and validate, does the customer or the user, which may be inside your business, does the user actually see value in the solution you're planning, right? Second, to validate the product that you think you're going to deliver and whether anyone will actually use it. And finally, to validate the business, right? What is the value you are going to capture for your business? This could be revenue, this could be profit savings, it could be efficiency, but to actually validate that. Experimenting in a rapid, iterative fashion to test and learn all these things instead of drawing up all these detailed business plans and case analysis of things you've never done before. Now, this can be done. Here's a great example, Walmart, right? Again, a pretty traditional company, but they are learning to think very differently. So they looked at one of the biggest opportunities for them, and that was around online grocery ordering. And they did not make a big detailed plan. They did not decide from the top what the way forward is going to be. They said, we're going to test and learn different delivery models, different operating models, different cost models. What can make this work? Because this is very tricky to make work on a price versus value basis. It turned out they discovered that some customers were willing to pay for a sort of an annual membership, something a bit like Amazon Prime. Then you get free grocery delivery, right? Others, they would charge each delivery because you can't afford to do this for free. Walmart is not looking at VC funding, right? They need to make money off this thing. So both of those started to get into the market, and then they had a third model for customers who didn't want to pay for delivery at all. They said, okay, we will create a great app experience for you to place the whole order, we'll pull it off the shelves, we'll put it all in the bags for you, and then you have to come to the store, right? And then you don't even have to get out of the car, we'll bring it out to you. We will put it in the back of your car, right? Just meet us halfway. That turned out to be not only a profitable model, something that really clicked with customers, but something that was incredibly scalable, right? But customer behaviors and expectations keep changing, so they keep testing and discovering new ideas. I love this one. It's called Walmart In-Home. Some customers actually want you to not just bring the groceries to them, they'll pay extra to have you put it away for them in the refrigerator. I love this. Right. The fourth step that we have to take as leaders is to learn how to manage growth at scale, how to do this kind of different thinking and innovating, not in one team and one problem, but across a big organization with lots of competing priorities, right? This is essential to growth beyond the core. And growth beyond the core is at the heart of where the opportunity of digital lies for every business, right? Companies like MasterCard, right? MasterCard is not just a credit card network, that's their core business, but where's their growth today? It's as a fintech company, working in areas like cybersecurity, different ways to empower and enable commerce across devices in the digital ecosystem. Amazon, if you don't know, their biggest source of profitability is no longer retail, right? It's because they were willing to go beyond their core and to launch a small team testing and learning a new business model as a cloud computing company, which turned into AWS. This really starts with learning to push your decisions down inside the organization, not making every decision at the top. It means developing new governance models for how do we greenlight new projects with an initial sign-off? How do we manage a much more iterative process of funding rather than traditional annual budgeting? How do we get much better at shutdowns, quickly, smartly ending? Most new ideas should be shut down in 90 or 180 days, right? How do we make that a seamless process we're just continuously doing? And critically, for those ideas that do work and do prove themselves in the business, how do we accelerate them for that exponential growth curve, right? The last step of the roadmap is about capabilities. How do we grow the technology, the talent, and the culture that we need for the digital future? So this starts with technology that is not just about the tech itself, but what it enables people to do. You know, a modular architecture that enables your teams to be much more agile, independent, flexible, faster moving. Assets of data that you're investing in because it's going to drive future growth of the business. And governance that puts control where it needs to be in the hands of the business units themselves while still maintaining the essentials of reliability, integrity, and security. All right, this is about talent, not just technical talent, non-technical talent as well, and not just hiring, right? Many leaders think the challenge here is how do I acquire, how do I bring in new talent with all these skills, developers, AI experts, et cetera. I'll tell you what, the harder job is how do you hold on to them? How do you create a working environment where the digital talent you need today will actually stay because they are doing their best work with you in your business? And lastly, how do you think about shifting the culture of your organization to be truly ready for digital growth, from an expert-driven to a data-driven culture, from a siloed to a collaborative culture, from a cautious to a risk-taking culture, from a culture of planning and more planning to a culture of experimentation, from top-down to bottom-up, and from product-focused to customer-obsessed. When I talk to technology companies, the biggest technology companies in the world, I find they actually spend much less time talking about their technology, and what companies like Netflix and Amazon talk most about is about the culture and how do they instill and maintain that culture at scale. So these are the 5 steps that I encourage each of you to think about how you are going to bring these back to your organization. As leaders, how will you help your people to define a shared vision, to pick the problems that matter most, to validate new ventures, to manage new growth at scale, and to grow the tech, the talent, and the culture that you need for the future? And if you're going to do this right, you have to keep in mind 3 last lessons. The first, I started with. Digital transformation is not about technology, right? It is about your business, and it is about your customers. Second, transformation cannot happen just from the top down. This is something that has to be bottom up. It has to engage every level of the organization, and it has to engage every function in the business. And lastly, transformation is not a project. It does not come with a start date and an end date. It is a continuous journey for your business. And so you as leaders have to see this as a process of iterative change that you are going to lead, helping your company to define its vision, to set its priorities, to learn to validate and experiment, to reshape your governance, and to invest in the capabilities for the future. And I know that as you guys go forward and do this, you are going to drive true transformation in all of your businesses. Thank you so much.